Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The standard disclaimer applies. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. As for introductions, my name is John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. And I'll hand it off to Robert Johnson.
Hey dudes, Robert Johnson, current master of Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, and host of the Whence Came You Masonic podcast.
Thank you, Robert. Nick Johnson.
Well, I'm Nick Johnson. I'm a past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time, Farmington.
Thank you, Nick. And Jason Richards.
Oh, hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Jason Richards, and I'm the Junior Warden and Life Member of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia.
Well, when did that happen?
Well, that happened last week, John. It was a fantastic honor to have a life membership bestowed on me. I paid the Grand Lodge a whole lot of money, and I got a lapel pin and a laminated dues card. Score.
Nice. May it serve you well. And then, while we wait for Juan to join us, the other special guest for tonight is another past master, and that would be Worshipful Brother Paul Chamberlain. Did I get the title right? Nice.
No, it's Paul Chamberlain, past master.
Thank you.
No. Okay. Good enough.
Brother Paul Chamberlain, past master of Greenleaf Lodge, number 561 in Midtown. Not big time, but
Fail.
Allentown. Big time fail. Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Don't worry, it's just recorded for all history.
That's fine.
Alrighty. Let's get into Masonic news to cover up Paul's epic fail. The first item on the news today is regarding the Jobies. Now, there was big news in the Job's daughter's world, where they have passed an amendment. Amendment 10 was passed at their Supreme Session this past week, and long story short, we'll send a link to the Reddit article. You no longer have to be related to a Master Mason to join. Thoughts? Questions?
You do have to be recommended by a Master Mason, though, I believe.
Yep, through sponsorship.
Sponsorship, yeah.
And they have to essentially shake the tree really, really hard, and then if nothing comes out, then it's a sponsorship from a Master Mason and also a majority member.
So, how is that different? It's just
they're the last of the Masonic youth groups that required an actual blood marriage relationship. Blood or marriage relationship to a Master Mason. D. Malay, I do not believe.
So now it could be like my daughter's best friend. You could recommend.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, as long as a Master Mason recommends it, right?
Correct. I mean, I understand where they're going with this. I was visiting a lodge in San Diego last night, and I was talking to one of the members there who is active in Job's Daughters. And asking his thoughts on it. It's really interesting because they are, in one sense, trying to widen the applicant pool, right? To get in more membership because the youth groups are having a hard time. But the way I see it, by doing this and by removing the Masonic requirement, I feel like the Job's Daughters are at a turning point now where they have to work harder to differentiate themselves from all of the other non-Masonic youth organizations.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I feel like, removing the Master Mason blood requirement is, it may come back and bite them in the long run. If they can't, get out there and promote their own image to the point where they say, okay, we have something very concrete to offer that the Girl Scouts and Rainbow and all of these other young women's groups don't have.
Well, and it was kind of interesting is actually this particular amendment failed at its first. This is at least what I'm hearing secondhand from a few of my sources, but apparently it didn't pass. It failed by just a few votes. They voted to reconsider, reconvened after lunch, and then they voted on it again. And so there was actually some people that were very much against it, still all the way to the very end. I think it just won, but it squeaked out a win by like 5 votes, which is, I mean that's a close thing in Masonic stuff where most things are passed unanimously or
That one.
blah 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 blah. That one.
I'm not the only one.
Yes.
All right, we're 2 out of 5.
Yes. But and so for me, I see it as a way for them to. It's a turning point. They can get, they now have the ability to, if they need to fish or cut bait, they can cut bait and become their own independent organization. And personally, I see the Masonic family kind of. I know that's going to sound bad, but breaking down. I don't think lodges are necessarily supporting these youth groups as much as they did in the past, and so this is actually a good way to get past that.
I would just say that, I mean, to your point, Nick, Masonry has a hard enough time kind of trying to keep what we have going, right? And so when you have organizations that are tied to us that are going downhill, that looks negatively on it might look negatively on the fraternity anyway. So maybe they can break the Masonic tie and then still die off in 10 years.
True.
Well, it's interesting. Masonry has kind of been the ultimate historical bureaucracy in the sense that all of these organizations popped up when everybody and their dad was a Mason, and nobody wants any of those organizations to die off. So if you don't go and attend the DeMolay ham supper as a Mason who's a part of 10 different appendant bodies, then you're a bad Mason. And that's one of my big pet peeves is just, my lack of involvement in a given group means that I don't give a darn about Masonry, and that's just
cool.
Like
Adam Thayer, I don't know if you guys read his response. He had a great response, which was remember the Odd Fellows, who dropped all these requirements to be an odd fellow, and then they died.
Remember who?
Exactly.
All right. Let's see. Let's go to our next topic. Obviously very controversial, but I'm sure we'll hear more about how that gets rolled out. My opinion on a lot of these amendments really is, some of these are big things, but they don't have to be permanent things, right? Let's just say it didn't work out. You can always amendment and clear it back again. It's for any of these things. It's still a democracy for most of the bodies, and nothing is permanent. I know it takes a lot of work to get over the hump sometimes, but we treat these things as, oh my gosh, there's no turning back, and there is. Alrighty, in other news, I wanted to share that on Chris Hodap's blog, this week, which is the week of August the 11th, 2015, is the Grand Encampment going on, which for those who aren't in the know, that's the Knights Templar body that meets nationwide, and they just elected a new Grand Master of the Knights Templar. So that would be Sir Knight Dwayne Lee Vaught, PGC, PGM. He's got lots of letters and lots of titles, and he is now the Grand Master of the Grand Encampment.
Hey, Paul. His
Yes?
ropes look kind of funny. They look like something else.
I don't know. I'm not seeing the picture anymore, so I can't.
Oh, there we go.
I don't know. Oh, they're purple.
Lots of purple ropes twisted around the chest.
We talked about some of the green rope.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh,
yeah.
You guys and girls and your ropes. I'm leaving that right there. All right. So congratulations. Yeah.
Are you and I going to be anywhere special in a week and a half?
Nope.
Will it involve ropes?
Okay.
Purple ropes.
So we're not going to be at the MRF symposium in a week and a
Yes,
half?
we are. So we've talked it up, we've hyped it up, and it's here next week. Not this weekend, Saturday, but the Saturday after. August 22nd, we'll be up in Philadelphia, so stop by and say hi. I tried to get Paul to come, and he's got to work.
Yeah. Hey, bring if you've got a Masonic passport, bring it. Come tell me the secret password, which is Nick's Weird. Tell me the secret password, and I will give you a stamp in your Masonic passport with my handy-dandy TMR embosser.
Not so much of a secret, really. Alrighty. Really. Speaking of Nick and his handsomeness, let's go over to Masonic Monday question on Tuesday.
Thanks, John. So we had a number of responses. In fact, this was, I think, the most responses I've received on a question in a long time, if not the most ever. And it was about the Edmund Fitzgerald. And so I'll read off the names really fast. Willem Kosen, Greg Guffey, Christopher Croto, Justin Miller, Jonathan Primo, Michael Laidlaw, Jared Chapman, Blake Leach, Steve Higdon, Christian Dubbs, Jeffrey Swiger, Mike Overturf, Ed Walnick, Joey Boyer, Greg Bodine, Shane Cody, Richard Heidi, Lou Bedford, Dale Allen, Kyle Rowe, Chuck Springer, H. Brent Webb, Luke Zale, Al Leathers, Tom McCoy Jr., Simon Dick, and Bob King. You all answered the question, which was the Mariners Church of Detroit. On the church grounds is a replica, and I will even bring that up, a replica of Donald DeLuise, George Washington, as a Master Mason. And he is right. Where are you? He is right here. Ta-da! And so, there you go. That's him. I think I'm sharing it, right?
Yes.
Anyway, there you go. But the best part about that one is actually you can take that street view and you can actually go around inside the church. They actually did a street view inside the church. So you can actually check out that. And so you can read about the whole story in the actual question. And so, yeah, let me pull up the actual question for this week, which you're going to really love. So, the Masonic Monday question for the week of August 10th, 2015 is, the early continental European Masonic experience was built on experimentation and alchemical mixtures. Traditions and orders collided with each other like atoms, creating new and interesting concoctions of beautiful complexity. This French Freemason, through his contacts with Martinez de Pasquale's Order des Chevaliers Masons Elu Cohen de l'Univers, so the Order of Elu Cohen, and Baron von Hoon's stricten observance, or rite of strict observance, developed his own set of degrees which mixed the religious ceremonies and Martinist influences of the former and the Masonic Templarism of the latter. Who was this famous Freemason? What Masonic rite and Masonic body did he help form? And the bonus question is, this famous Freemason also wrote that there are 3 kinds of alchemical Freemasons. Name them. When you have the answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name and number and the hashtag Nick's French is terrible. Back to you, John.
Fact.
Burn.
Yeah, dude, I took French and it is just awful.
Yeah, that's pretty terrible.
It is. I mean, we're not even joking anymore. Dick, come on.
L'ordre des Chevaliers Masons Elu Cohen de l'Université.
Quick.
Josh,
Oui.
you're done.
Where's the
Bonjour. Hello.
We've never had to boot someone from the show before. Don't make this our first experience.
We
C'est moi.
almost made it to 80 episodes. All right.
Good.
All right, let's move into this week's topic before the French take over, which is past masters. This was recommended, and it's been muted. This was recommended to us from Brad Parsons, who is a past master, a fan of the show, and he wanted to for us to bring up the topic of what happens after your year in the East. This is something that most lodges do not have a transition plan for, and that is what happens when you step down, when you go through the election process and your successor has been elected and installed. It can be a hard time for some people, and according to some of the comments on social media that we'll get to later, that it's often very upsetting in the sense that it definitely takes some of the authority away. It definitely takes some of the activity away. So I think one thing that we had is we have currently 3 past masters in this panel, and we have sitting worshipful and a soon-to-be worshipful. And so we've all seen the transition of others before us and experienced some of it ourselves. The first piece of advice that I would like to say for any of those who are about to transition out or have, step 1, go home and spend time with your family. The very first thing. Being a sitting master takes a lot of time. And the very first thing, and I've seen it firsthand, some masters of Herndon Lodge, Patriot Lodge, you don't even see them for almost the whole year right after they're in the East. And it's not disrespectful to the lodge, it's respectful to their family. And I think that's the best thing any brother can do, is to step back, take some time off, support the lodge when they are really needed, but make sure you give that attention back to your family first. It's a good reset button, You're able to unplug and take a breather, enjoy the finer things in life. How about you, Paul? What do you think is another good piece of advice for a transition from a sitting master to a new past master?
Well, first of all, that's the best advice is what you just gave. That's getting away is the best thing you can do, because you just went through multiple years of a lot of work that was well worth it, but it was a lot of work, and now it's your time to take a breath. I would suggest, and I know you talked several episodes ago about progressive lines. If you know who your successor is going to be before the election, which I think most of us do typically, try to work with him as you go through the year. Let him know what's going on, so that when you leave the East, he's ready to take the East. Don't leave everything a mystery to him. Even if it was left a mystery to you, make sure he knows what he's going into.
Mm-hmm. Very good. That's really sound advice, because you want to make sure that a lot of the plans that you come up with continue on, and that the things that you did not get to, and yes, if you are coming to the East, you will not get everything done that you planned on ever.
No, never.
I have not met a single master who got everything done that they wanted to.
I planned on doing nothing the entire year of 2017.
Setting the bar low.
Hey, there you go.
300th anniversary, nothing happening.
Hey, that works. That works perfectly,
Now, just a funny side note on that from me. So the man who replaced me in the East was a past master. He's actually the first repeat past master we'd had since the 19th century. And he's also a commander in the Navy and owns his own successful contracting business. So I didn't really have much leadership advice to give him, but it was... I still tried to help him where I could.
Don't screw up.
Mm-hmm.
All right, now Nick, one thing that you've said way early on when I read in your blog, and is something that I find fascinating, is your lodge actually has a progression for the immediate past master. What in your lodge, or is this a statewide thing, that the immediate past master has to do?
This is a lodge specific thing. So
Okay.
Corinthian Lodge, what we do is we actually you go up the 7 steps to from junior steward all the way up to master, and then the pyramid goes back down again. You go to Leo, you go to the lodge education officer, and then after that you go to marshal, and then you finally transition out. So most of the guys are going to be in a line that's 10 years long. It's nice because it allows.
Wow.
I should say first off, it kind of sucks a little bit, only because You don't get to leave.
That's a 10-year
necessarily.
commitment, though. That's insane.
10-year commitment to go up and then back down again. So, you know, it's one of those, like, you know, spend time with your family kind of thing. Well, you sort of do, but you're still showing up to every meeting.
JK, LOL.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, whoops, sorry, I still have to show up. But, you know, it does work in that it keeps the institutional knowledge going, because a lot of the stuff that you learn going up helps the next guys when you're going back down again. Especially, you know, I mean, if you have a lodge that owns real estate or a lodge that does a lot of things in the community, you need to have that kind of institutional knowledge, just so you know who you're going to be talking to at the city council, or, you know, at city hall, you know, whoever, city hall, not city council, but the city hall, who you're going to talk to for the schools when you're doing the scholarships, things like that. So it's one of those that you don't want to lose that institutional knowledge, but at the same time, yeah, it's a huge commitment to be a past master over at Corinthian. And
Has it worked out well for your lodge?
it actually has. I mean, we have guys that most of the past masters show up. I mean, I've been bad this year where I haven't been showing up, and that's an honest thing right there. But you know, it's one of those that it's true. It really does help to have that extra support there, because you've got these guys, and as long as past masters don't take over the lodge, which is really, I've seen other lodges where you can kind of tell that there's this little cavilling group on the side. You know,
They do huddle up. It's kind of funny.
they really do, and they kind of like, they invite you in once you have the P in front of the M instead of the W, but before that it's like enemy, and then, you know, finally it changes. But, you know, it's, as long as the past masters aren't trying to run the lodge, as long as they understand that the master is in charge and that they're just there as advisors, it works out well.
And I do have a picture of what that looks like, and that is right here. There's a whole row of past masters, also known as Statler and Wardorf.
I've met those guys.
That seems to be when past masters get together. Boy, do they throw insults from the sidelines. It's great. If only they were that funny. Aha! All right, Jason, what have you seen in your lodge?
Well, you know what? We've been lucky enough to have a cadre of immediate past masters who are very, very involved in the lodge, and that's something that's really cool, because our lodge is small enough with members that if we didn't have that core of those brethren who were, you know, who made up the, sorry, phone's ringing, who made up the last 5 or so years worth of Worshipful Masters, we'd be in a really, really hard place. One of our Worshipful Masters from when I was raised 3 years ago is now our district instructor of work. Several of our past masters are on various district committees or district membership coordinator, Grand Lodge committees. And so they come to ritual practice when they can, and they're much more involved in the district overall than, you know, they were going through the line at Acacia.
So stay active is what I'm hearing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They stay very, very active, and they've moved on to kind of bigger roles within the district, as opposed to being very like Acacia Lodge centric when they were moving through the line.
Move up and out. All right. Now, I'm going to ask Robert a loaded question, because he's halfway through his year. Sir, what do you plan on doing after your year in the East?
Well, for me, it's interesting, because I started. Not everybody starts as like the lowest position in the lodge as far as the line. I did, so I had an 8-year line. I started as a junior steward, senior steward, worked my way up. And so this year, after I'm done in the East, I'm literally just taking, 7 steps south to the secretary's desk. So I'm going right into secretary, and I'll probably be there for at least 5 years. But I also have district responsibilities as a district education officer. So I do have to frequent the different lodges. I have 7 or 8 lodges that I have to oversee education for in the district. So I have to go to those stated meetings, and I have to go to all of the other type things, and help out the district deputy when applicable. If he calls me and says, "Hey, I need your help with something," I got to be there. And that's kind of the plan going forward. I mean, I don't. I was actually talking to Worshipful Brother Jeff Henson, a good friend of mine, and he's all over. He manages, Valley Chicago Scottish Rites Facebook page, and he does so much stuff. And he actually monitors. He's like the lodge growth guy for the northeastern area. And we were joking today that, one day we're going to slow down, and he said, just accept it. You're never going to stop. And I said, yeah, we're probably going to be those 80. We'll be those 2 80-year-old lodge instructors still going around trying to teach people stuff, and be crotchety old jerks.
Statler and Waldorf, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be us. As long as we're staying motivated and staying, not being jerks about things and not being the crotchety old masters,
right.
I think we'll be fine. But when we start getting cynical, it's an issue.
Mm-hmm. Now, one thing I did want to mention is that there are lodges that don't have a natural progression like Nick's Lodge. We don't have very active, super active past masters like was mentioned before with Jason and RJ. So if you are one of those past masters who really don't have a set path, it can be kind of depressing. You've come from a seat of authority where everyone, as we talked before in an earlier episode, when you're a master, it's a benevolent dictatorship that pretty much Robert's Rules of Order do not apply in at least the most of the United States jurisdictions. And so now that that's been taken away from you and you have to literally hand the talking stick over to someone else, if you don't have a path, it can be very frustrating. One thing that I recommend, and this is really something that applies to any brother, right, that wants to be active, is find what your calling is. Find what you like to do the best. For me, I like education, and so I immediately found a position as the Lodge Education Officer for the Patriot Lodge. That's just something I'm passionate about. And so, you kind of have to find your own path, and no one's going to really set it for you. So, I definitely recommend you find kind of what your niche is. You actually have time now to do the thing that you want to do because you didn't during the East. You have committees to take care of things for you. So now find the thing that you love. If it's greeting people, if it's serving food, if it's working on ritual again, getting back in the swing of that, if it's mentoring, coaching, there's many opportunities. So don't just hang the hat. Really follow up and do the thing that you love.
To your point, John, I think that's one of the reasons why I was really excited when I became a district education officer, was because I was always really bummed out. Like if somebody came to visit my house in the summertime or whatever, and they stayed for 3 weeks and they left, I'd get bummed out. And I'm the same way. So it's like coming from an active role and then moving into kind of like an inactive role. I kind of was. Here's what I was worried about when my year was up. This right here, and I'm going to share this little screen share with you. Right there. You see it?
Who is that? It's Old Yeller.
I was like, all I saw was my face, man.
I
was scared of Jason's face.
You lived out your years.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. So I think
you're going to be taken out back.
Finding that active role is important, like you said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and that's kind of what I planned out my Masonic career in this way, where I stuck to the Blue Lodge. You always hear, especially it's said on Reddit a lot, when we have new guys coming in saying, "What do I do?" And we explain to them, take some time. You don't have to rush through everything. And for me, I've been very slow with this Masonic journey. So when I was finally, 2010, I was finally in the chair. 2011, I was finally out. That was the time I said, sure, I'll join chapter. But I didn't join the rest of the York Rite. And, for me, it was this slow progression of, I never wanted to be inactive, and so I was always looking for something to do. There was always some chair. So I've been in a chair now for, a while now. I think I've been in a chair for more than a decade in something. And so it's one of those that I find that having both an active side, this side where you're able to, I've been a past high priest, I'm a current past illustrious, current commander, and so I have this stuff where I can be active in this, but then when I show up to lodge, I'm more of an advisor. So one of the jokes I had was, I was sitting in lodge one time, and I was kind of, it was for a degree, and I kind of bent my head down a little bit because I was just listening without really looking. I was just listening, and all of a sudden the guy got stuck, and all of a sudden the whole room got quiet, and I'm like, what's going on? I open my eyes, they're all staring at me. And I'm like, what? And they're like, Nick, what's the next word? And I'm thinking, and I'm like, I think it's time. Oh, okay, good. It's time. And then and then they just move on, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going back to sleep now. So it's kind of nice.
The best joke in the world is when they go, oh, darn it, start me off, and the guy goes, my brother.
And it's fun though. I mean, I love being an advisor because it's one of those that you don't, I don't wear the past master badge as some kind of thing to lord over somebody else. For me, it's kind of like I'm a docent at a museum, and I'm like, I know some stuff, but I don't know everything. Why don't you hang out at my group for a little bit, and I can help you out.
You'd make a horrible past master.
Yeah, and it's something worth pointing out too. It's something worth pointing out too, as far as that goes, is that one thing that me and John and Nick and soon enough Jason and I guess kind of you, Robert, have is we're young past masters. And that's that. The fun when I mean we get portraits taken. We have a portrait wall at our lodge of all the past masters. And when I went to get my portrait taken, the guy's like, "Wow, it's such an honor. You're so young." And I was like, "Well, and it is." And you look at our portrait wall, and there's a lot of gray hair, and then there's my smiling face. But the nice thing is actually there's my smiling face, and the guy that came after me is in his late 50s, but now our current master's in his mid-30s. Our next master's in his mid-30s. Our next master's in his mid-30s. And
I'm only 33.
Oh, you just have an old soul and an old face, I guess. I'm sorry.
I have a face for radio. A face for radio.
You got beat by the old.
That's why you're so good on a podcast, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
well, babyface Nick, they're sitting there laughing away.
Yeah, I've got but that's something.
Let me know when you start dating, Nick.
Yeah.
Is that being the young past master helps kind of the young guys will look at you differently than that 80-year-old guy who was master in '68.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Hey, so Nick brought up something too that I want to talk about too. One thing that I couldn't do very well as I was progressing through the line and getting ready for the East, studying for our warden certificate, is I could not be active in some of the appendant bodies that I was part of. And I've seen other people, and I'm trying to do that myself now that I've got more free time from Blue Lodge, is to become more active in the appendant bodies. So what are you guys' thoughts on that? That, something that you can still be involved with, maybe even get a leadership position in those other bodies as well, if you really like sitting in the chair.
Nick is
go straight to chapter king like John here.
Yes. On my way.
Well, I've told you my high priest story, haven't I?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what happened was I had just joined chapter. The chapter that I joined had been on the ropes for a while. We're growing rapidly now. I'm not going to say it was because of me, but it was sort of kind of because of me. So we're growing now. But I had to miss one meeting, the first meeting I'd missed in a long time, because I had to pick up a table set over at JCPenney's. Not important to the story, but anyway. I'm picking this table up, and I'm literally pulling it out of the window. I'm getting a phone call. And I'm like, you know what? It's not important right now. And so I'm finally loading this in. I told them I can't make it, and they're like, and so I finally listened to the message, and it's my buddy Steve, and he says, "Hey, Nick, by the way, we elected you to a position. No worries. no problem. We'll tell you about it when you get here next meeting. If you don't want to do it, you have 5 minutes to call us and say, no, thank you, because we're voting right now. And so I'm like, oh, okay, fine. They probably put me as like scribe or junior warden or whatever. I get into the next meeting, all kinds of golf claps and handshaking. Congratulations, High Priest. You are going to do great this year.
Burn.
Oh,
That's
So
awesome.
Yeah, and that was a 2-year commitment. I was actually High Priest for 2 years, and finally the line has fixed itself. But yeah, I go slow. I mean, there's no reason to rush into everything, I don't think.
So if
go ahead.
I may offer a controversial opinion, if you're in Blue Lodge and in your line of chairs is in Blue Lodge, don't join the appendant bodies.
Why not? It's just
Being
another.
an officer in a Blue Lodge is enough, especially if you're balancing it with your family. For me, it was 6 nights a month. That was 6 nights a month away from my family. Now you're going to ask me to throw in 2 more meetings at consistory or Scottish Rite or, God forbid, Shrine. I know you guys don't like to talk about Shrine, but they exist too.
Hey, there's 31 days in the month, and someone's got to get a meal out.
Yeah, and Jonathan, I know your wife, and I know how well that went over. So,
Like a
Let me
lead
tell you
balloon.
guys something.
Like a pregnant pole vaulter.
My time in the lodge is way better than my time at home. Just kidding.
Nobody ever.
Yes. It was nice knowing you, RJ. I wish you the
It was
best.
cool. Yeah, make sure my wife watches
I was gonna
this.
say we know his wife doesn't watch.
This has to have. You have to say this as evidence. I did apologize. I said JK, LOL.
Well, it's hard too. I mean, the appendant bodies push so hard, especially you'll have appendant bodies that'll be like, hey, if you join, you don't have to do everything. You can just show up whenever. And it's like
That's the same thing they told me. I think I was like junior deacon at the time that I was rolled into, and they were just like, it's totally cool. You'll be a Valesman. Okay, if you're not in Royal Arch, all that means is it's a very insignificant thing. They don't even need you to open. Okay, but they were like, oh yeah, just do that. Next thing you know, I miss a meeting, same as Nick. Now I'm like the junior warden of that lodge. It was, and the thing that bothers me about the whole situation is Masonry is struggling as a whole, all over the place. I mean, not everywhere. Some places are on the upswing, but a lot of these lodges are starting to build up finally, right? And they're like, oh, we have nobody to save the appendant bodies. We'll get some of these guys that are just coming in. And then pretty soon, now you're killing the dudes who joined Freemasonry, like just the Blue Lodge, the Craft Lodge. And they're struggling to balance both. They're literally strangling us because they don't want to die off or whatever. But it's like a give and take, I don't know what to do about it, because on one hand it's like, yeah, let's get them in, elect them, and get them on the phone, and however you need to open and close in a 15-minute Skype meeting if you have to, or they'll do what they have to meet the requirement to keep a charter just until you can get active. It's awful.
Hey, so Jason, we got a lot of past masters who've commented in social media. What are they saying?
You know what? I have to start off with Bill Hosler because Bill's the man. And he is one of the first people who commented, are basically like, what's your advice for that master who has just stepped down from the East? And he says, run out of the room screaming obscenities while laughing your ass off.
Yeah, that's Bill.
That is
yes.
Bill is a super funny guy. He's like probably the head writer really for the Masonic Radio Theater, and he's always, whenever I have to call him for anything, he's so silly about everything, and he's so like just cynical funny. He is like the epitome of the grumpy past master, but like the funny version of it, I guess.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah, and so we have Ken Lotman, our good friend and brother out in Texas, who's a master now, who said actually his plans for when his year is over is traveling and visiting lodges outside of his state.
Awesome.
And I think That's awesome. Once you're not super tied down to go into your lodge every week, you have the opportunity to broaden your horizons and expand your net a little bit.
Yeah, we have a traditional observance lodge in my district, and it was really nice to get out and hang out with those guys and see what they did, and then go to the Brazilian steakhouse afterwards for their dinner. That was pretty good.
Sweet.
So how do you guys control burnout of your past masters? Because I was seeing on the social media somebody talking about. Let me see who it was.
That was Scott Harris.
Yeah, and he said that his second time through, he was completely burned out. And the thing is, I can honestly say I felt kind of burnt out, and so it's just kind of keeping some. What did you guys do? Other past masters?
Well, it was a big load off of my shoulders. I know it's amazing. In Virginia, you're not a past master. We talked about this in the green room. You're not a past master in Virginia until your successor has both been elected and installed in that chair. So you better hope that nothing happens to that person after they've been elected and before they get in that chair. It has happened in the past where someone had to stick on. But it's such an amazing feeling to come home after the officer's installations and say, I am now a past master. That it was just getting over that stress, right? It was, you now pass the torch. It's ceremonious, actually. That we kind of have a sort of joking tradition where we physically pass the gavel right after the officer installation. So it's kind of a joke thing. We take pictures of the immediate past master handing the gavel to the new installed master, but it's more than symbolic. It really is a psychological effect of handing that off. So burnout is a real thing. After I'm sure RJ can attest that he's amazed how half his year has already flown by. If you want to time travel, be installed as Worshipful Master, because that year will fly by. But it's bittersweet afterwards.
It is. 6 months have already gone by. I've got 6 months ahead of me, and not even really, because the last 2 months is kind of just not really anything going on. It's like, what are we in August right now? Next month I've got basically a Grand Master's class that I have to do, and then we have a Past Master's dinner, and then it's November. August, September, November. November. So November is Grand Lodge sessions, or is in October. November, I think, is our annual meeting, and then basically I'm done. So it just goes by really fast, and it's really weird, and I don't know. I felt burnout a long time ago. Like, I've been doing this for 8 years already.
That's true.
I've been burnt. Everybody's like, "Oh man, you guys get so much done." Like, the guys in the TMR and everybody who's involved in kind of like our big the superstructure of masonry that is like masonry, I guess you would call it on social media, really. These TMR and the things that we do all together, and Adam Osmond and all these other brothers who are out there doing all this nutty, wild, awesome stuff. I think a lot of us, everybody's, how do you guys do it? Well, we've been burnt out for a long time.
Yeah.
It's in Christmas Vacation, where he goes, "Dad, how'd you get through all the holidays?" He says, "I had a lot of help from Jack Daniels." That's not really, but I mean, it is stressful.
Yeah. All right. The last question I had is just for the past masters, and that is, after leaving the Oriental chair, what would you say has been one of your biggest successes, that now that you've got that title, the official title of past master, what do you think has been one of the best things that you've done out of the East? And I'll start with Nick.
Well, in my year,
be quiet.
Hold on. So are we talking about during my year or after? Because it wasn't like that during my year, but talking about a success in when I was a past master, or when I was worshipful, and then when I was a past master, I'll talk about the first one was In Minnesota, you can actually do a table lodge in conjunction with an entered apprentice degree, and we did that twice at my lodge. We had the
That's cool.
immediate past grandmaster, the grandmaster, and the deputy grandmaster at the first one, and then we had the deputy grandmaster and the grand tiler at the second one. And it was a fun event. It was probably one of the best attended entered apprentice degrees I've ever been to, and it was filled with food and merriment and all that other stuff, and it was great. I loved it. It was one of my favorite things that I did during my year. As a past master, I think my favorite thing that I've done is been able to work on committees in the lodge that nobody really cares about, but are kind of vital because of some structures that my lodge has that are kind of unique. So it's been kind of fun to be able to kind of work background scenes, and back helping out guys and being that guy who gets the 4 or 5 emails a week, sometimes 4 or 5 emails a day, and just helping them out. I love doing that stuff. So.
All right, Paul, what would you say?
For during my year, I was just proud that I had good programs every month. It started with my warden's night. I had a certain soon-to-be podcast host and his friend come and give a presentation, and I think the brethren of Greenleaf Lodge enjoyed the presentations I had every month. I think they learned something every month, which is always a goal of mine.
Yeah, education.
Yeah, and out of the East, I kept my promise to my wife. When I went in, I said once when I joined Masonry, she was pregnant with our daughter, and once I knew I wanted to be an officer after the first stated meeting. I just knew that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to the East. I wanted to be there, and I told her, I said, listen, I have to do this now, because if I do this now, our unborn daughter will be in kindergarten when I'm done. Otherwise, we're going to run into school conflicts. If you don't want me to do it now, I'll do it when we're retired. And to her credit, she said you can do it. And she goes back now and says that I didn't tell her everything that was involved with what I was going to have to do. But one of the promises I made was that I would step back once I became once I became a past master, and I have. I feel comfortable with the brethren in charge of Greenleaf Lodge 561. I know that when I don't go to meetings, that the lodge isn't falling into a lake of fire. It's doing just fine without me. So just keeping my promise to my family has been my biggest accomplishment.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And I guess I'll go next, and I really think my biggest accomplishment, for those keeping track of the years, my year in the East was 2013, and this podcast started in February of 2014. It wasn't really planned that way. This podcast started as an experiment, and here we are, a year and a half, almost 2 years later. But the focus is education. I knew I wanted to stay with education. I knew I wanted to be a lodge education officer, and so continuing that was an important thing. And so I'm glad I got to carry that forward, and it just happened to turn into a podcast as well. So that's what I'm really proud of as far as continuing education, even out of the chair. And I'm like you, Paul. I tried to have really good programs lined up. I had S. Brent Morris, I had Chris Hodap, but I wanted to try and keep that high caliber presentations at the lodge.
Your September state meeting that year was amazing.
There was a good guy from Pennsylvania. I can't remember his name. Rather handsome chap.
It was Richard Ingham, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it had to be.
Yeah.
Him or the Paul Chamberlain. All right. So thank you, Paul, for coming by here. The hour's getting late, so let's start wrapping things up, and we'll start with Nick. Unmute yourself, sir.
Wow. Hold on. Sorry, I was thinking about how wonderful my year was, and really the accomplishments that I had, and boy, do I wish it would just go back to those glory, halcyon days of 2010, 2011. No, just kidding. For me, I think the biggest thing is that when you're finally stepping down from the East, I'm going to kind of mix John's concept of going back to your home with this idea that we learned from the Swedish Rite episode, which I thought was fantastic. Is for me, the biggest thing I did was I stepped back and I stepped off to the sidelines, and I felt that I needed to become an advisor. In the Swedish Rite, when the Worshipful Master is done with his 10 years, he steps down. He no longer carries a title, and he regains the title that all of us were given of brother. And for me, I think that's the most important thing I can do, is to be a brother. I don't need to be worshipful this or excellent that or whatever. I'm here to be a brother. I'm here to help. I'm here to guide the lodge and make sure that anybody who needs the guidance that I've had from the years that I spent moving up the line, I can at least be there to give them that advice and institutional knowledge as they go on the same path that I had to take. So that's really what I think a past master has to be, is somebody who is willing to give up the hat, drop the gavel, and just give a pat on the back, and that's all you need to do, and be there to listen when they complain about the other past masters or somebody else. And also make sure you get those past masters in line. Cattle prod, lasso, I don't care.
Yep.
Whatever you can do
Absolutely.
to keep them from mucking it up, whatever we can do, that's what you got to do.
Very nice.
Oh, millennialfreemason.com. Boom.
Thank you. 2 N's, 2 L's. All right. Let's hand it off to Robert.
Well, as going to be, I will be, your has-been, once you have done that, I guess, what am I right now?
Currently are.
Currently are? Am I currently are?
I almost named this episode Has-Beens, but I didn't know if people would get the reference.
It's been like an amazing experience going through all of this, and what Nick said is probably the best it's going to get. Be there for people, and that's why I took a role as, education, and I do all that. It's because I just like to help people, really. That's what I do in and outside of work anyway. That's just who I am. And I think that's kind of what all Masons do anyway. We're all helpers. We all are there for each other. That's the whole idea of brotherhood and that kind of deal. I don't know. Like I said, hopefully the future is awesome. Hopefully none of us get burnt out. And if you take one thing away from this show, outside of the whole past masters thing, Paul had some great advice, and that was don't join another line in a dependent body. Don't join a dependent body if you are in line. If you're just going to be a steward or something and drop out, or you just want to be a steward and nobody cares if you're there or not, that whatever. But I mean, if you are actually going to be in a progressive line or an elected line, and you have any aspirations of making the journey east and serving your lodge, why don't stress yourself out? So kudos to Paul for saying that big time. That's all. Thanks, guys.
Alrighty. And Jason.
Oh, let's see. I don't have the luxury of being a past master until December of 2017 at the very earliest.
Well, hold on really quick, Jason. You said for your year in 2017 you were flying all of Acacia out to London for the celebration, right?
Oh, good job, Jason.
That's awesome. That's amazing. Well, that life membership money goes far, man.
Yeah.
You are a giver. Giver.
I hate you all.
Love you, buddy.
I really do.
He's already past master material.
Exactly.
I hate you all with passion.
That's not actually. I can say this. That's not the way I will do it, or it's not the way I will have done it. Future perfective in my
Future
year.
perfective.
Boom.
See the grammar episode.
Yeah, no. I mean, you just have to keep yourself engaged. There are a lot of masters who get out of the East and then you don't see them for 6 months because they're just so checked out and they're so burnt out. Try to keep yourself engaged. Remember that your duties to your lodge don't stop when you leave the East. It's something I can't more forcibly recommend. Your lodge still needs you. Yes, your power has shifted a bit, and you're more of that advisory capacity than you are actually running things. But if you have a good line of men coming up behind you, then those men will heed your advice and they'll heed your counsel, and that's where you can continue to help shape the lodge into something that's going to pay dividends for years to come.
All right, be active, free hugs, good stuff.
Okay. Oh, and super huge thanks to Matt McComb and the Brethren of Consuelo Lodge number 325. We hung out last night and it was awesome.
In sunny San Diego.
Yep. I'm going to like 3 different lodges this week. It's amazing.
Now, San Diego, that's German for something, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's yeah, whatever ego is, it's when you drop your waffles on the beach, San Diego. Yeah, and I
Mute
do
him
also,
now. Mute him now.
I do also want to say real quick.
Who has a gavel? Who has the gavel?
Future
He gave it up.
congratulations to brother Jeff Ewing, who is a fan of the show. He is a fellow craft who will be raised on Thursday, and I'm going to his raising, which is going to be awesome.
Yay! Congratulations, brother. All right, Paul, what have you got?
All right,
Nothing.
Three points. First of all, there is nothing more satisfying than going to your first meeting as a past master, and at the end of the meeting, standing up and looking at the master and saying, "That's not how we did it in my year." That's the most beautiful feeling in the world. Secondly, to expand on a point of why past masters can be good for your lodge, is diversity. Look at the men sitting before you. We all have various backgrounds. We all have various jobs, but we all love this fraternity, and all of us have served it. 3 of us have completed our journey. 1 of us is almost through his journey, and the last one will get through his journey soon enough. And I encourage you to do the same. It's one of the best things in my life. I would do it again in a heartbeat with the timing. I wouldn't do it right now because I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, but I look forward to hopefully doing it again when I have a 27-year-old and a 23-year-old, maybe. And lastly, everyone likes to give their plugs, so my plug is this week's Boston beer product is Coney Island hard root beer. I suggest you all try it. It is wonderful.
Oh, gosh.
That's why we have to change it from shameless plugs to just plugs.
To just good old hair plugs. All right.
I don't have a blog. I'm sorry.
Can I mute you now?
Yes.
Good. All right. I have 2 final thoughts, and that is really my summary for those transitioning from the East to become a past master. Do what you love. I mean, that's it. We all join this fraternity for different reasons. We all get out of the fraternity different things, and so do what you love, and that will keep you going. That will give you meaning. It'll give you purpose, and hopefully keep you active in your lodge or in your pendant body or wherever your journey decides to take you. But if you're not passionate about it, then you're not going to enjoy it, and you're just going to be miserable, and you're going to be, Statler and Waldorf sitting on the side. If you like podcasts, help support this show by going to themasonicroundtable.com and go to the shop button at the top and help us by buying a pin and keeping the lights on. So that will help us going. So with that, that's all I got. Congratulations to all the past masters. May you live long and prosper. With that, thanks for watching, and keep searching for more light. Good night.